This is the Mediate Now with Winter Wheeler. Your clear choice for expert mediation and negotiation advice. But it's so much more than that. Take our advice, you will improve your entire life. Are you ready? Let's get to it.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for listening in today. My special guest is Kim Freeman, and I am beyond excited to have her here. Kim is so cool. She's been in my circle for quite a while now, and I just enjoy her. And so I think that obviously, I think that you will too. So Kim is an Ohio employment lawyer turned accidental solopreneur. During her pandemic pirouette, which is like the best phrase ever, she founded Above the Rim HR to help small businesses reach new heights by creating people-centric policies, providing employment and management training, and helping clients mitigate risk by remaining compliant with ever-changing employment laws. Prior to attending law school, she earned a bachelor's in journalism and spent a decade as an award-winning journalist. Although she is a native of Eastern Kentucky, Ohio has been her home for 25 plus years. She lives in a Columbus suburb with her husband, an amazing vegan chef with his own business, and their shelter dog, Max, who's actually VP of Fun for Above the Rim HR. They're the parents to a blended family of 6, yes, 6, amazing adult children. Kim, my God, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Winter. I was so excited when you said, hey, come do my podcast. I'm like, oh, it's like hitting the lottery. Woo!
Aw, you are so sweet. Oh my gosh. No, like I had wanted to approach you for a long time, but I didn't know if you would be interested. And then one day I was just like, I think she'd be a really great guest, so I'm just going to ask her.
Well, your timing was good because, as you know, since we do know each other, I have been hesitant to kind of jump into the podcast game as a guest. I am from Eastern Kentucky. Occasionally people will comment that I have a little bit of that accent left. And so I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to put myself out there, with the voice and so forth. And then I just got to like, hey, let's do this. And let's start saying yes. So this is my second podcast appearance, and I really enjoyed the first, and I know this is going to be fantastic. So I just appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, that's so awesome. I hate, though, that you were, like, concerned about your voice, because, and I'll tell you, I am... Not anymore, but I was very concerned about my voice. I think it's really annoying.
I have yet to meet anyone who just was like, oh, my voice is fantastic.
Right.
It's more like I hear myself recorded and I think my ears are going to bleed. This is not good. Like, what are people thinking? Like, screech.
Right. And I think that that's normal. Like, most people don't like the sound of their own voice. But I've had to get used to it. Obviously, to work through the podcast, figure out like how it's going to be edited and all of that.
Well, and now you're a TEDx speaker, so you just have to embrace your voice.
Times 2.
Right?
Times
no
2.
doubt to be 3 soon,
Listen, I'm tired. So that may not happen for a while. But yeah, and the thing is, though, Kim, your accent, I live in Atlanta. So I'm used to accents. I'm from South Florida, so I'm really used to accents.
Okay.
I think that your voice is beautiful.
Thank you. Same.
Thank you. And I'm always trying to suppress my accents, plural accents. I'm one of those people that can, that picks up an accent as we go through.
Right.
like a conversation. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's that like empathic part of me or if it's just because I'm sometimes a little extra. Little strange, little
I
weird.
love that about you. The extra part. That's one of my favorite things. But
I love it. Good. Hey.
And I think it's like anything, if I was around other people that I grew up with or went to school with, there would be a much more extreme version of us all, right?
Yes.
So like hillbilly code switching.
Hillbilly code switching. Oh my God. Hillbilly code switching, that's the funniest thing. And I'm glad you said that there because I've never really thought about it that way.
It's true. If I'm speaking to somebody from, it's sort of like when you're saying that you occasionally pick up on accents. So if most of my family still lives in Kentucky, when I go visit, I can find myself falling into those patterns of speaking again, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas, in a situation like this or a professional setting, I will try to cut my words off a bit and not have so many long syllables and, verbs. So, yeah.
Is that hard for you?
I think I've been doing it for such a long time now, not as much. But I can't, when you grow comfortable, say the staff that I had at my last position, it's much more comfortable with them. So they would hear much more of the accent than if I was in a meeting with other professionals and so forth. So.
Oh, man. I love that. I really do. I mean, I could probably talk to you for an hour just about code switching, but like... then I wouldn't hear all the other really amazing things about you. So what I would love to talk about is your expansive career. My God, like I feel like, are you on your third incarnation?
Yes, actually, I think we're at 3. The 3 is the magic number, right?
It is.
So I began my professional life as a journalist. I spent about 10 years as a newspaper reporter and a magazine editor and enjoyed that profession very much. Might have stayed a bit longer if I could have made a living at it. Yes. But I went to journalism school because I had a burning desire to serve in my community in a way that could impact it. So I thought, I write well and I can get in the community, find out what the problems are, and perhaps write articles that could solve some of these issues. So I did that, and it had some very interesting times. One of which was I spent about 6 months covering what at the time was the largest bank robbery in West Virginia history.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it had everything. It had bank robbers, and then they killed one of their fellow gang members and buried him on a mountainside, and then they counterfeited money, and I mean it was just the whole thing. So there was some, and at the same time, this whole federal state task force was going on to root out political corruption in southern West Virginia. So it was an exciting time, but in the back of my mind, I always knew I'd end up at law school. My father was an attorney, and he went to law school during the years that I was age 3 to 6. And it was a bit like being like a baby duck gets imprinted upon its mother, right?
Yes.
It was like the law became imprinted upon me at a very young age.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because, going to law school is just, you become almost consumed by the law and what you're learning. And so those were the earliest memories for me was him in law school and the concepts that he was talking about. So issues of justice, it seemed like I just grew up with these things. And So they've really become the foundation of my life, both personally and professionally. So I decided after my stint in journalism that I would go to law school. I think you're aware I did so. I started law school with a newborn and a toddler.
Yeah.
I had a third baby while I was in law school.
Listen, and none of that seems like feasible to me. And like, I know you did it, so it can be done. But I consider myself to be like pretty tough. Like, I feel like I can do anything. But I mean, obviously this, I went to law school. I was 22 when I started. I could not have even fathomed it. And I had friends who had babies during law school who already had children. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, I don't even know how I'm taking care of myself right now. How would I do this and take care of other people? I mean, that in itself is a feat worth celebrating and like patting you in the back. I'm giving you like virtual pats like, all over the place right now.
Thank you. I appreciate it. A lot of people say, once you attend law school and you get out and you begin your career, there's not much value in looking back and talking about what that experience was like. And now it's been about 20 years since I was in law school. But for me, that's just not true, because when I face any sort of difficult task or something that might look like it's a particular, like a mountain to climb, let's say, metaphorically, I think, well, I can do this because I went to law school with, very young children, right?
Yes.
So I kind of use that as like, there's not much that I can't do, given the desire to do it.
I love that because, as I want to say as women, but people in general, we convince ourselves that there's, there are things that we can't do. We tell ourselves that. And so it's amazing to see what other people have done. And so, like, clearly I've already said I've convinced myself that I could not have done what you did.
But you probably could have. You probably could have.
I probably, right, if I had to, you know, and that kind of it reminds me a little bit about my TED Talk that's coming up, because it's about, like, not having a choice. Like, you just do. You keep moving. Yeah, that's exactly you've got a goal. You just keep moving. You've got little people to take care of. You just keep moving. They're so important. You just figure it out, right?
Exactly.
And it's go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say. So I spent this time in the law, and as you mentioned, then there was one more turn in terms of a professional turn. It was prompted somewhat by COVID. And I decided that my love of employment law and HR should make it official. And I started my own business called Above the Rim HR. So,
which is amazing. I started my business during, like, right before the pandemic, and really started to focus on it during the pandemic. So I definitely get where you're coming from. But what is it that prompted you during the pandemic to say, I'm going to do this right now?
Well, I like to liken it to being pushed off the cliff by the universe. It wasn't necessarily that I said, oh, let me quit my job and start this HR consulting business. I had been working for a PEO. I was the director of HR services. I built out all the COVID response, as it occurred. And unfortunately, I was laid off ultimately. due to the pandemic. So I decided, at the time I thought, well, I'll just get another job, right? Like millions of people aren't looking for another job, right?
Right.
This will be no problem. I'll get another job. It was a problem, especially given the many years of experience that I have, being where I was in terms of my compensation. Needless to say, people were not looking for someone at that. If they were looking at all, they certainly weren't looking for someone at that level.
Right.
They were looking to cut those budgets, not increase them. So I worked for a while, several months, kind of, I like to call it my employment hokey pokey. 1 foot in, 1 foot in, trying to go back to that sort of W-2 corporate life, and 1 foot out. I was, working as an independent contractor, doing legal work, doing HR work. It was a hardship to try to look for a job while still trying to make money and pay your creditors and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I would get up and I got to the point where I just cry. Every day I'd wake up crying. Like, I can't. It was, it's just like,
been there, honey.
I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. And how come, I can't get on with someone and so forth. And finally, I had kind of a epiphany when, a position that I was certainly well suited for, I wasn't even advanced to this next round. And I said, this is nuts. I can't keep doing this. And I don't want to. And I just said, hey, everyone keeps saying, why don't you work for yourself? And I'm like, no, I don't want to, let me live. And
right.
I don't want to face the healthcare issue. I don't want the taxes. And, I'm just like batting, all the while making myself miserable over it. And finally, I was just like, wait, this must be what I'm meant to do. And once I made that decision, it was like this huge weight just rolled off my shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
And I knew it was right. So that's how I got to where I am right now, working in HR consulting. I still do legal work as well. My license is still valid in Ohio, and I do that too. But HR, and as you know, because of the writer in me, I do a lot of content creation. I write articles, and that's part of what I do as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love absolutely everything that you just said. You already know that I've got an affinity for you, Kim. But the thing is like when you finally have that realization that you need to do your own thing, and it's like, for me, it was nothing is going to work. Nothing is going to work with someone else. I know that. Mm-hmm. Other people don't see my potential. Other people don't appreciate my value. They don't see my worth. And apparently you and I both had the self-esteem to say, I don't care what you see. I know what I see. Exactly. I know what I see. Yes. And we eventually came to that decision. But it's hard. And so for people who are listening, who might be like waffling between the two, I will never encourage someone to quit their job if they don't have a lot of savings, another job lined up, or a real plan ready to go. I won't do that.
Right. Agreed.
Listen, I have jumped headfirst so many times. It's insane, and thankfully they've each worked out for me, but I would not recommend it. It's stressful. And I have done so much less, since I had kids. But I think it's really amazing that you thought enough about your skills and yourself and what you have to offer to finally say, I get it, universe, I got it. I can do this. I can do this. And you went ahead and did it.
Well, I was very fortunate. I had people telling me too, supporting that idea. So it wasn't as if people were like, oh, you got to get back to work. There's not a whole lot you can do other than handcuff yourself to, a corporation and good luck to you. I had family and friends and professional peers who just said, you can do this. And it gave me the support that I needed. I got support from LinkedIn, from the groups, from you and other of our friends there who were also modeling it themselves, right? Who had made that pandemic pirouette or pivot or whatever you'd like to call it.
I like pirouette.
Yeah, right. Dancing into the best years of your life, right?
Yeah, even better.
Yeah. So I had some modeling that I could see, like, oh, okay, they're doing this, and I could do it too. And I've been throughout my whole career, I've always looked at it as if you go to my website at abovetherimhr.com, you'll see in the About section, I compare myself to a Swiss Army knife. I really feel like, a generalist who has all the tools to solve problems, whatever problem you have. Mm-hmm. And because I, over the last, 25, 30 years, have worked on putting more tools in that toolbox, I knew, hey, I could just reach in there and I can use these tools to help people. And at the heart of HR is people. And I could also help myself. I could embrace the fact that I'm at a stage in my life where a change needed to be made, even if I went kicking and screaming about it, okay. Even if it was sudden and certainly unprecedented, to say, yeah, this will work out. And right off the bat, I received several referrals from people I've worked with in the Columbus area. I connected with an attorney in Texas that I do benefits law for. So it's worked out. And I'm excited about it. And now I don't think, like I was recently, a recruiter contacted me and actually had a job that was very similar to what I had been doing, same level, same compensation, all that. And I probably would have been perfect for, and I wasn't even the least bit interested. So I thought, okay, there we have it, right? Another sign that I made the right choice.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I know you made the right choice. Like, I've gotten to work with you and you are amazing. You've helped me out with newsletters, with bios, with websites. And what's really amazing about you, Kim, I was actually talking to my therapist about this earlier today, about a half hour before we got on this call. I was telling her, I'm recording a podcast later and this is who it is. And what I told her was that Kim is one of the few people in my life, like the entirety of my nearly 40 years, who has bothered to really look at what I do and figure out who I am, how I sound, my personality, what I want, and like really put the effort in to see who is Winter. And I can't tell you how invaluable that is to me, not only as a professional, but as a person, as a friend. I have a lot of acquaintances. I have a lot of close acquaintances, I would say. I don't have many people that I consider to be friends, but I do consider you to be a friend.
Oh my gosh, you're going to make me cry.
Oh, don't cry. But it really means a lot to me that you have taken that time to learn about me and what makes me tick and to try to help me. And you have helped me every single time I have reached out. And it wasn't even only when I reached out. It was, I see that Winter is having a hard time. Let me offer. What can I do? Yeah. And when I tell you I do not get that. I do not get that.
Yeah.
So you are so special to me. I love you dearly, Kim.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel the exact same way about you. Oh. And I believe that you've hit upon just who I am as a person, right? I truly am an empath. I truly care about people deeply. I think that's one of the reasons, aspects of issues around justice. Like I hate injustice. Like I can have a very visceral, response to matters of injustice, and I think at the heart of that is not just it's unfair, whatever, but it's because I do love people. And so all three of these, in my professional life has always been about people, right? Helping people. Right. And so obviously the personal bleeds into the professional. I am very authentic and I can't separate the two. So I love people. I want to see people living their best lives, happy and doing the things that energize and encourage them. And so I want to help. So I'm a helper. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. You are.
Yeah,
absolutely. You are. And along those lines, we talked a little bit about the Crown Act.
Right. Which is, I don't have to tell you. You can certainly tell your listeners what the Crown Act means to you as a Black woman in America. Discrimination based on natural hair and natural hairstyles is repugnant, and it is racism. I as an attorney too, that there's been a few decisions by courts suggesting, no big deal. They can, just have them change their hairstyle.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. And our small town here in Ohio is preparing to put forth a regulation, a city ordinance about banning such discrimination. I have put my full support behind it. My husband and I plan on showing up to City Council to discuss it. And I don't know that maybe when you're in the majority, like I am, or certainly white men in the majority, don't take enough time to consider what this means. It's a shrug, right? Whatever. But at the heart of it, what you're telling people is we're going to make these arbitrary rules based on our experience as to what we say is acceptable or professional or neat or, whatever. Yes. Pick one. And we're going to center it all on whiteness. And so we're going to tell people the way your hair grows out of your head is a problem. That's just unacceptable to me. And you cannot be, our small suburb here of Columbus just announced that they're looking for a diversity and inclusion officer. They want to take this all very seriously. And I said, excuse me? if you're not willing to put forth some effort here to make sure that this kind of discrimination is banned, then you're just hypocrites. You can't hire a diversity and inclusion officer and go, oh, we don't care about this over here. That's unreasonable.
Right. No, and I appreciate that. You know, I mean, I was born in I'll say the early 80s. the very early 80s. And things were just different. And I remember having conversations with my parents about what I needed to look like and what I needed to do and how my hair should be. And, you know, what can you do to kind of fly under the radar and not be a target? And that involved straightening my hair when I was a very small child. I do not know really what my natural hair looks like because my hair is always straight. It's always straight. I've just gotten used to having it straight at this point.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't see myself changing it. I mean, maybe I will, who knows? But it's definitely something that was ingrained in me that it needed to be straight so that I could satisfy the status quo.
Right.
You know, and it's, you know, crudely said as don't scare the white people. Don't make the white people uncomfortable. Because if you do, you might get fired. Right.
And it's, I just couldn't imagine. I recently wrote a letter to the city council regarding this, and I just flipped the script on them. I said, consider what it would be like if you were told, hey, the standard we have here for professionalism, neatness, you know, pick a word, is that you must wear your hair in locks, twists, knots, or an afro. And you're like, well, but my hair doesn't do that. Like, I can't make it do that. Or to make it do that, I have to spend hundreds of dollars a month, inordinate amount of time to make it do that. Like, it just doesn't grow that way. It's not conducive to it. Consider being told to keep your job. That's what you need to do. That is outrageous. It's outrageous. And we cannot stand for it. If we say that we want a society that is just and diverse and inclusive, then these type of things have to stop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and I've always been in a position where, right, wrong, or otherwise, I've always been considered acceptable, right? Acceptable, whatever that is. And I have elected in my lifetime not to question it because I want to unpack that shit. I don't want to. I just don't want to.
I can't even imagine. So I will just say I support that. Whatever you need to do to make it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But it's always been very, very awkward when people mistake how I look and how I present and my white husband and my half-white children to somehow indicate that I'm less pro-Black than other Black people.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which is just not true.
Yes.
Anyone who knows me knows that is just simply not the truth. It boggles the mind. But, at this point in my life, at almost 40 years old, I've just come to kind of accept that that's what's happening, which I find unfortunate. And it makes me sad. It makes me wish I could do more. And the extent of what I have been able to do is when I'm present for a conversation about, oh, that secretary has locks, she might be a little radical. I can stop that conversation from happening.
Right.
I can address it that way. But I never felt good about the fact that that's all I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've never really taken it beyond that very personal. And then I have to give myself a break, right?
Oh,
because
absolutely.
I was working there too. I need to, yeah, I need to get along. I needed to keep my job. And, you know, like I said, I was indoctrinated as a child to think that this is what I needed to look like. And then I got used to what that meant. And I have looked this way. Oh my God, I should get pictures for you from like kindergarten. Like okay. I look exactly the same. Yeah. Like I'm totally going to dig one out and like send you a picture tonight.
Good.
I look about the same. Like I've just always looked like this. And, I've had to give myself a break, really. Like I said, that is, while it is unfortunate, it's not my fault that is what happened to me, and that is now how not now how I feel about things, but how I came to feel about things. And that now I feel like I can't get out of it. Mm-hmm. My goodness, I didn't think we were going to go this personal, but I'm just kind of at this point where this is how I've always appeared. This is what people expect. And it's easy for me to do this now. It's part of my routine. And that's just kind of it. So for me, I feel like if I didn't straighten my hair anymore, I wouldn't even know what to do with it. I would have no idea. I mean, I could figure it out, of course, but my straight hair has been such a part of me for so long that it just is me now. Right. This is me. And so it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I, you know, it is, because now it is just who you are. Even if it didn't start authentically, it now is authentic, right?
Right.
Because it is who you are. And that, to me, it's all about the freedom that you have to fully embrace that. This is Winter. This is who I am. This is how I do prefer to have my hair, no matter what the origin was. Now I accept that this is me. But it comes back to everyone having that choice to embrace who they authentically are, without being discriminated against for.
Yes.
When, you know, how someone is wearing their hair has absolutely nothing to do with how they perform their job. Now, obviously, there's situations where, you know, your hair needs to be pulled back because there's machinery and so forth. But even so, even somebody who's wearing it in long locks can pull their hair back. So, you know, these types of rules that they've sort of infused into the dress code are all have a racist origin, and also are about our standard of beauty being about the majority, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to work, we, white people, not you, we're the ones that put this system in place. We must dismantle it. We still have the power to do so. And it would be wrong for me to say, well, you're just not doing enough, Winter. What are you doing? Like, you're the victim. That's like saying, I got robbed, you know, in the park, and what did I do? Did I run after him? Did I try to catch the criminal? You know, like, no, that, you know, certainly what you talked about in speaking up to defend someone and to say, now, wait a minute, you need to examine what you're saying for its biases. If you felt comfortable to do that, that's great. If you had not, I would have been like, hey, That's okay too, because as you say, you had to work there. And it isn't, this thing about saying, Black people, please fix racism in America. It's like, what? Like, that doesn't make sense. And of course, I can identify with what you're saying in regards to being in an interracial marriage, because my husband's Black. Yeah. And, he gets the side eye often from the community going, well, you married outside the race, so you're not Black enough, Mm-hmm. And so when you mentioned that, I was like, yeah, we've been there with that one.
Yeah, listen, it is a weird thing. It is a very weird thing. My husband being white makes me no less Black.
Right? My husband feels that way too. Like my wife is, but I'm blackity black. That's why, he's like, I'm black.
Like, black, yes.
365, 24/7, black. So.
Yes, and that is how I feel too. And it's just so odd to me when people suggest otherwise. And I'm like, what about having a white husband makes me less Black? I don't really understand that. I will never understand that. I've heard some excuses. I've heard some rationales that make no sense. My existence, I have been a Black woman my entire life. Like, my existence has not changed.
Exactly. And your interactions with the world, and I will say this from watching them with my husband, is that of a Black man in America, and they couldn't care less, that he's married to a white woman. Right. Right. He suffered no less racism on the job. He's certainly not pulled over any less for driving while Black. I will say, if I'm in the car with him, there does seem to be a little bit of a shield of protection that goes, like, oh, okay, we won't. Yeah. But I'm also an attorney. So,
yes,
I throw that out and things start going differently too, right? But otherwise, it's a very interesting dynamic. And I'm just all about ending systemic racism. I think it's the number one problem in our country. And I'm going to do everything I can.
I love that, Kim, because I'm right there with you. I definitely notice a difference in how I'm treated when I'm with my husband. I'll say that I've always been a little bit of a firecracker. I'll put it that way.
Learning things about you today, Winter.
Yeah, right. And things that probably would have gotten me in trouble, my husband's been very easily able to get me out of. Very easily, just because he showed up. Now, he's also 6'6", and just very large and frightening. Yeah. People think he's frightening.
Yeah, frankly, he's a white man in America, and that they are on the top of the heap.
Right. And so sometimes I think about, in those situations, what might have happened had he not been there. Mm-hmm. Being a lawyer doesn't save me. Being a mommy to 4 kids doesn't save me. But there have been times when my husband shows up, and even worse than that, he might have a friend show up, a white friend show up, and still saves me.
Yeah.
And it's so conflicting.
Right. I just can't imagine how disheartening and invalidating it is to your personhood. It just makes me weep. It really does. I'm starting to cry again.
Don't cry.
I can't help it. But because, we all have inherent value as people, period. It doesn't matter, what this flesh sack looks like, flesh bag, whatever you want to call it.
I'm good with flesh sack.
Flesh sack? We'll go with flesh sack. It literally doesn't matter, or should not matter, right? You're inherently valuable. It doesn't matter what the flesh sack looks like, what you do for a living, how much money you have, where you live, who you know, whatever. Your inherent value as a human being should always be the number one objective of society, is to support that for everyone. And
absolutely,
I believe that's probably why I've so drawn to employment law and HR, because it is at the heart of it about people. And if you can help people take care of their livelihoods, they take care of their life, right? And so I think that's where you have to start. And we learned in the pandemic that about essential workers.
Yes.
Right?
We learned a lot about essential workers.
That society has not valued were the most valuable.
Yeah.
And I hope we take some lessons from that. And it actually appears some lessons are being learned as we come out of this. And places that perhaps were not paying the wages that were livable wages are finding that we have to do better. We have to do better by people.
That, I did not realize that. That is good to know. That is good to know. Because like other people in my position, I stopped leaving my house. Mm-hmm. I had the privilege to do that. I was able to keep my entire family home for nearly a year and a half, right? Mm-hmm. My groceries were delivered. Anything that I needed was done by Zoom.
Right.
So I've got great internet. I've got great lighting. I had my children in private schools. I was able to have a very positive experience with virtual learning. And the entire time I had the option of sending them in person. And what the pandemic did for me is I knew I was privileged before that, right? But it just drove home the enormous gap between people in my position and those who were performing essential services. Like, I needed groceries and I needed someone to bring them to me. Mm-hmm. So I'm essentially paying someone to risk their life so that I don't have to risk mine.
Right.
And when I realized that, I mean, it hit hard. It hit hard. And did I change the fact that I was not going to the grocery store? No, I continued to order my groceries. Did I tip better? Yes. But I felt terrible the whole time.
Right. Knowing somebody
terrible.
had to do it. Yeah.
Somebody had to do it because they needed the money, because otherwise no one would have been doing it.
Exactly.
Why else would you have done that? Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
So it was just the craziest thing. And of course, it makes me think more about the people that I worked with, like staff in the law firm, and what they were doing. By the time the pandemic hit, I was no longer working in the law firm, but I'm around lawyers all the time. And so I know that a lot of, support staff weren't able to just work from home. They weren't set up for that. They couldn't afford the new internet routers and the faster cable that I was able to do without much thinking, on my part. And it struck. I don't know how else to say it, but it struck and it made me feel absolutely awful.
Yeah. We knew certainly on a conceptual level that there were very many different Americas, right? Certainly in terms of socioeconomics. The pandemic just pulled, everything back, like just layer after layer of that onion, and you were exposed, and you're going, oh my. I didn't realize the depth of the issues or all the nuances of them. And you mentioned several, right? Certainly 20 years ago when I was in law school, I was editor of the Law Review. And one of the topics I was hoping someone would do a note on was whether access to the internet was going to be a civil right. Well, look where we are, right? Look where we are in this pandemic. Who was able to continue with their work, with schooling? Your children were able to continue in school. There's children that, they had no devices. They had no internet, let alone that their parents had jobs that were not conducive to, being at home, working at home, right? So it exposed just the vast differences that we have in terms of resources and how much work there is to do to bring everybody into the circle.
So, while you're doing your HR work, is that something that you started to see a lot of people bringing up issues with potentially accommodation? I need you to pay for me to have internet because I don't have it, and I've got a pre-existing condition and I can't go into the office. Were you seeing things like that?
We were certainly getting questions from our clients about what sort of accommodations needed to be made based on the pandemic. Of course, there was a period of time there where everything pretty much shut down and nobody was doing much of anything. But then for those people who could work from home, exactly how to make that happen. Most businesses were agreeable to working, or at least those that I was exposed to or were clients of mine, were certainly agreeable that if they had workers who could be remote, they would help them gain the tools and the resources to do that. Now, that being said, I don't know, and I don't have insight on as to whether, they've drawn a line and said, time to come back, and we will no longer, no matter what your concerns might be, we're no longer going to accommodate that based on the pandemic alone, obviously, outside of any considerations of ADA or any of that. Right. So I did see a willingness of most businesses, because they didn't want to be completely shut down, obviously, to do that. But the bigger crisis became for typically working women that they simply, even if they wanted to work from home, it became almost impossible because they were having to help children, or they were helping ill family members, or they, it just was too much. And I think that we've seen that they're calling it the she session, right? The she session.
The she session.
So many women were forced out of the workforce due to the pandemic, and it's going to be difficult to add them back in.
Listen, I saw a lot of women forced out of the workplace, and it speaks to a lot of issues. It speaks to what are the, I guess for lack of a better term, obligations of women in the household. What are the obligations of the men in the household? And I'm only speaking to heterosexual couples right now because that's the only experience that I have, being married to a man. And I saw my responsibilities increase tenfold. I was pissed. I'm not even going to lie. Listen, not was, am. Am pissed. Still mad.
An ongoing burn. I get it.
Yes. This is not resolved itself. But it was just a wake-up call, because once I was in the house all the time, my husband kind of reverted to, oh, she's here.
Oh, yeah.
She's here.
Oh, good.
Except that I was still doing the work that I was doing before when I wasn't here.
Right.
You know, and so trying to explain to him every freaking morning, I shouldn't have said that. That, you know, that I need to be alone when I'm doing my work. No one can be with me. That is simply how my business works.
Right.
I was sick of it. I was tired of it. Like, I don't want to tell you this one more time. Handle the children. Handle them. Mm-hmm. You know, this is how my job works. Your job doesn't work that way.
Right.
Nobody's watching you.
And you can imagine, as tough as that is, if there was not another parent in the house, right? Because
listen, I would not have survived.
Right. So the national conversation that's going on about paid leave, about paid childcare, about maternity leaves that are paid and so forth, is an important one, because until we address these issues, especially for women, we're never going to get to that fully equal society where women have the same opportunities as men. We're just not.
Absolutely.
And other countries have already adopted programs, especially in terms of paid leave, that help women remain on their career tracks. There's child care assistance. There's these things that support women so that we remain a strong, vital part of society.
Absolutely.
And it's a conversation that's long overdue. And I think the pandemic just brought it into sharper focus.
Yes, and I'm assuming that you can hear my child right now.
I can a bit, yeah. I only have a dog now, and he's comfortably in his crate. So you cannot do that with children.
Cannot crate a 3-year-old.
Don't do that.
No. I'm gonna let him in. I'll be right.
Go ahead.
Hi, buddy. Hi. You missed your mommy, huh? Okay. Well, mommy's almost done. But do you want to say hi?
No.
You don't want to say hi?
Oh, well, hello.
Little dirty face. Say hi. Hi, Miss Kim. Can you say hi, Miss Kim?
Hello, sir. No. You are darling. He's beautiful.
Thank you. He just can't be away from his mama for too long.
Yeah. Well,
can't.
my youngest just turned 22. So
love it.
And it seems like, 5 minutes ago, she was 3. So enjoy as you can.
As
much as you can.
Right? I know. And I'm lucky to have women like you in my life to remind me of that. You know, that phrase that the days are long, but the years are short. I try to keep that in mind.
Yes.
So no matter how hard it is to keep up with him and him banging on the door when I'm trying to do something, one day he's not going to need me. He won't be banging on the door, and then I'll be sad about that. You want to get down, buddy?
There is some.
Yes, go find your daddy.
There's certainly some melancholy to that, but it's as you get further along, you just enter this other stage of your life, right? And you have those moments of heartache for that time gone by. but then they're replaced with other things, ultimately, hopefully grandchildren, right? I hear, because we don't have any yet, that grandchildren are the reward for not killing your children. That's what we hear. Oh my God. I'm like, oh, good. Looking forward to that. So,
yeah. I hope you get your grandchildren soon. Well, as soon as you think it's appropriate.
Yeah. We're okay waiting a bit longer. That's what we keep telling them. It's okay. You're still young. And try to get all your education and so forth. Because I mentor a lot of young women who are either considering law school or in law school. And I'm like, okay, first things first. Do not do it like I did it.
Right.
Go to undergrad, get yourself into law school, make all that happen. And fortunately, I have one daughter who listened to that, and she's a 2L. She just finished her second year at the Ohio State University College of Law. So she was like, that's, and of course my children can remember me in law school, just like I can remember my father in law school. My children can remember, but of course it's a much different experience for them because as we were just talking about in terms of women holding up more of the workload perhaps at home, that's what my mother did. So my father had children while he was in law school, but it was very different experience than me having children in law school, right? So
yes, absolutely.
So they probably have different memories of mommy being just, they probably need their own therapy for that. I've apologized. I don't know.
Listen, you have nothing to apologize for. You did what you needed to do. You get to do what you want to do. You are a person.
There you go. Right. Inherently valuable.
Inherently valuable. I love it. Thank you so much, Kim. I want to end it on that note.
Okay.
I love it. Inherently valuable. That's beautiful to me. Thank you so much for doing this show.
You are welcome. It's been my pleasure, Winter.
And tolerating the little mini man that barged in.
No problem whatsoever. I wish we lived closer. I know. Give you.
I would gladly send him to you. And I tell you, he's never interrupted a show before. It's never happened.
Well, he just knew. He's like Auntie Kim. She's good with it.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. I will put all of Kim's contact information in our show notes so that you can follow up with her. You definitely want to get with Kim. She is an HR rock star with her background in employment law, journalism, and just her deep sense of humanity. You want Kim on your side. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Winter.
Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Music and audio editing provided by Encompass Podcast Studio. Take our advice. You will improve your entire life.